I have aspirations and dreams of one day hosting a podcast on my own. I knew what the topics I would discuss and I knew what angle I wanted to have. Today, I'm really proud of myself that we are here. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Success in Doses. I am so excited to finally be here and having this moment with all of you listening in today. If it's your very first time hearing my voice and seeing my face, hi, I'm Saley. I am a mom. I am a pharmacist by training, yes, but I am also a person who's had a lot of experience with failure, recovering from failure, and a person who's had a not very linear journey to where I am today. And I am extremely excited to have the opportunity to use this platform and leverage this platform for some really insightful, but also very difficult conversations about success, but also failure and overcoming and all of the various complexities that come with anyone who decides that they are going to take the monumental step forward to become the best version of themselves. And so that part of it really, really excites me because the conversation we'll have here are absolutely going to transcend my training as a pharmacist, but it will be a lot about the lived experiences for myself and all of the various people that I will have the privilege of speaking with and learning more about as we get to grow and have and be in uncomfortable spaces together on our way to defining success for ourselves and obtaining that for ourselves. If it's your very first time also hearing me, I wanted to speak to you a little bit about what I hope this podcast becomes for all of us. A little bit about me is that I am definitely a 25-year chronic kidney disease survivor. The reason why I lead with this is because this really monumental event that happened when I was just 15 years old for me and my family has shaped how I see myself, how I relate to others, how much tolerance I have for various things like excuses and things like that. I've had to overcome a lot, right? When you are 15 years old and you find out that all of what you understand to be life will forever be different because of all of the various things you have to take into consideration before you make a single decision about your own life. It could be really, really heavy. And so, yes, I have not some, I have a great degree of familiarity with delayed gratification, right? Because that diagnosis resulted in me having to spend 4 years on dialysis. And during those 4 years of life defining time, right? I was in high school where my counterparts worried about acne and dating. And my counterparts experimented with a lot of various things. Experimenting with those things for me had dire consequences. Choosing to not be compliant with my medications and the consequences I suffered for that would land me in the hospital. And so learning really, really early what it is to be responsible and having to take responsibility, right? And learning accountability very early really kind of made it so that I could not relate to my peers. I couldn't relate to my peers. So that, of course, makes dating uncomfortable. That, of course, makes friendships difficult to build and maintain because, with all honesty, I lied to many of my friends in school about why I missed school so much and why I couldn't go on certain field trips and why I couldn't go on sleepovers, why I can't have salt on my French fries, why I ate differently, why I had to go to the nurse's office every day for lunch because I had to take my medications. So that journey of having to, or that desire to want to assimilate so badly and want to belong so badly, I identify with that in a very, very personal way that transcends just I don't fit in, but also a lot of resentment and a lot of anger because I didn't eat myself to chronic kidney disease and I didn't drink myself to chronic kidney disease. I was only 15 years old with really, really big dreams that all just seemed like I would never be able to accomplish them. And so that made me really different. To this day, it makes me very, very different. But I talk about the gift of having such an early thing like that happen to me. And the gift that that gave me was the gift of resilience. It gave me the gift of appreciating individuality. It gave me the gift of perseverance and grit that is unmatched, right? Understanding that or having to face and come to terms with the fact that for the rest of my life, I will always feel different. And so it isn't about, like if you walk into a room and look for what makes you different, you'll find it. I can't relate to that. I cannot relate to that. I don't have to look for what makes me different in a room. Simply being present in that room, I know that I am different, right? It's the knowing of the otherness for me that's always made belonging such an important part of my journey and a thing that I am very passionate about making sure that others feel like they're not just invited, but that they belong in the spaces that have been created for everybody to be. So you'll hear a lot about that and how that experience has contributed. And so I say today that that experience was a gift because I've gone through a lot. It's taken a lot of therapy, a lot of praying to accept that, yes, it really, really is awful that I have to live with chronic kidney disease. Absolutely. I would never sit here and be like, oh, I'm so lucky that I have had to live with chronic kidney disease for 25 years. I could never sit here and say that. But I can say that it has gifted me certain things. And so I recognize the challenges that I have had to overcome, but I also have been very, very, very determined and refusing to allow those challenges to define me. I've been very intentional in making sure that hard work is at the center of everything I do. I've been very intentional in making sure that I don't lead with my otherness. I've been very intentional in battling imposter syndrome along the way, in making sure that I stay grounded in the things I know to be true about myself and who I am. And so on this podcast, we are going to talk a lot about truths and the things we hold dear. Because when the going gets tough, those are the things that I know have anchored me and bolted me down in place and staying firm and true in the journey and knowing that I'm not delusional for wanting to launch a podcast where I think that others are out there that have had similar journeys, not with chronic disease, but and feeling like they may not be as sure as some of their counterparts. And so you being here today and listening is proof of that, right? So I wanted to kind of outline that a little bit. The next thing that I want this podcast to be for us is a place that we can dream boldly and loudly. I'm going to have guests on here that have had to overcome obstacles that I honestly don't know that I'm strong enough to overcome, right? For me, dreams are very, very powerful. The dreams we have, or the way that I think I feel that my dreams, or God's way of talking to me about the fact that my life holds value and meaning, right? Not value or, but that my life, my presence here, it holds both value and meaning. My dreams give me that. And it hurts me in ways I cannot define when I hear people tell me that they had dreams of doing X, Y, or Z, but felt like they were not good enough to go after that. That hurts me a lot because I did have so one of the things that I felt like chronic kidney disease was going to rob me of was my dream of higher education. I really wanted to go to college. And I know that college seems like this super optional thing for a lot of people, but in my family, college education was non-negotiable, right? But also, I saw what education did for my parents and the power that education gave them coming from a place and a country that is so impoverished, right? They were able to build a future not just for themselves, but for me and my five other siblings, right? And so seeing that and then thinking that, oh, I'm going to build a future for myself that I can be proud of would happen without a college education was inconceivable in my mind. It just wasn't something I could identify with, right? So chronic kidney disease for me, it threatened that. So after my first transplant at the age of 19, there was nothing more urgent on my list as far as dreams can go than pursuing a college education. There was nothing more urgent on my list of dreams than becoming independent, being able to take care of myself and not being a burden to others. And so this podcast, in a way, is part of that dream because for a very long time, the idea of wanting to have a podcast by myself and having a podcast on my own was such a scary thought that I honestly couldn't find myself verbalizing it. Like I would speak to mentors, I would speak to coaches and never actually have the strength to say it out loud. Like I have aspirations and dreams of one day hosting a podcast on my own when the vision in my head was so crispy clear. I knew what the topics I would discuss and I knew what angle I wanted to have, right? But today, I'm really, really proud of myself that we are here. We are here where I am publishing and launching that podcast with so much fear and uncertainty, but I'm doing it anyway, right? And so I hope to also talk to you all about that journey and that process of all of the various things I am learning through this journey as I go through it, even though uncertainty rules. It rules. Like I am so scared. I am so uncertain, but I am also super ready for whatever comes next. And so I hope to talk to you about key moments that have defined my journey as well. Speaking of dreams, motherhood was that dream that I was scared of expressing aspirations for it for so long. Like For a really long time. I wouldn't even engage in the conversation with my providers because I was scared of what I would find out. I was scared that I would learn that I could not naturally, like the normal way that everyone does, that I couldn't carry and have a baby of my own. And to now be a mom and go through that transition and navigating those struggles, boy, have I learned a lot from that and the power of sacrifice and the meaning of prioritizing. Because to say that nothing comes before my family is a gross understatement of how I truly feel, right? Nothing comes before them because of how what it took to get here. My journey has not been linear. My journey has not been linear. And I want us to talk about that and talk about the fact that for some people, it's I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to go to grad school and then I'm going to get a residency. And then after residency, I'm going to get my dream job. And then after working in that dream job, I'm going to have an impact on this many people and have this flourishing career. I have not had the luxury of knowing what that is like. What I have had a lot of experience with is venturing out and saying, I'm going to do this, and something knocking me off my axis, right? Most notably, this past July, I was knocked off my axis after suffering the loss of my mother, right? How has that shaped me and impacted me? I am still too hurt and still too lost to talk about that in a comfortable way. I'm sorry. To talk about that in a very comfortable way, right? Because of the giant that she was in shaping me as a human being in this life, right? So we'll talk about that, but that won't be today. Today we are celebrating launch and we are celebrating this moment, and we want to talk about that today. So the name, I wanted to talk a little bit about the name of Success in Doses and how I came up with that. It was really because I spent some time reflecting on not just the topics and what I wanted to cover on this podcast, but I spent some time reflecting on my journey. And when I think of and have to admit the fact that my journey hasn't been linear, and I think about the fact that my journey has been a collection of these micro wins, these very small wins, right? I didn't start out at a 4-year university. I started out working full time as a pharmacy technician and going to school in the evenings and weekends at a community college to get credits on my way to pharmacy school. I didn't get into pharmacy school at 21 and 22. My journey in pharmacy school didn't begin till the age of 29, right? Um, I decided I was going to pursue residency, but that journey to that was stepping up for leadership roles and building these small wins and wanting and pursuing to be impactful locally at school and then nationally through professional organization. And that landed me in a residency program, literally of my dreams, right? And then while there, I was challenged and pushed in ways that I could have never imagined possible. Within 2 weeks of starting residency, I ended up hospitalized and finding out that my transplant was failing, right? And having my first bout of serious clinical depression as an adult and having to start medication and going to therapy for the first time in my life, as an adult in my 30s, having to start medication and going to therapy during residency and going through that quietly and never talking about it with anyone while balancing the responsibilities of being a resident. And the wins have been really small along the way. But when I look at my career today and all of the ways I've been able to reinvent 7 years after residency, going on and doing a fellowship, and after that fellowship, landing a role as director. These from the outside seem like, wow, whatever strategic plan like I have, they have worked beautifully. Nothing could be further from the truth, right? The decision to pursue a fellowship, for example, was a result of a monumental disappointment in my role and in my job after coming back from maternity leave and feeling super, super, super disconnected to my job and super disconnected and disillusioned from my role, that I knew it was time for a monumental reset and a monumental pause, right? And figuring out and deciding that, you know what? I think it could be time for me to take a step back for a monumental leap forward. And that's exactly what it did for me. And so I just think that the name of doses was appropriate, but what kind of doses, right? I toyed with a few names. I toyed with mom, pharmacist, entrepreneur, mom, pharmacist, and boss podcast. I toyed with a few different things, and success and doses kept rising to the top of every list when it came to value. Success and doses kept rising to the top when it came to the void I felt existed right now in the profession, but also beyond for young professionals. What are the conversations presently happening around helping young women like myself that are super driven and ambitious, but have other things going on in their lives? They're moms, they're responsible for families. They may not be moms and responsible for families, but they have a really young career that they feel like they don't know how to take the next step forward. They're about to graduate from residency. They didn't get a residency this year, and they didn't get a residency when they applied, and they're not sure if reapplying for residency could be the right move for them. I want us to talk about all those things here. And I will have guests that will share their stories with you about how it took them years to circle back to the residency dream. And today, they are doing exactly that. We will talk to you about folks who have reinvented their pharmacy careers time and time again and found fulfillment in that. I will bring you guests that are pharmacists that do things that look nothing like any pharmacist you've met before. But that's the point, because the point of this platform is not to bring you what you would get everywhere else. But the point and why I created this platform is for us to have the difficult conversations, the joyful conversation, the uplifting conversations, but also the conversations that are going to invigorate you and empower you to go out there and seize the opportunities that you felt like have been out of reach for you for so long. And so I will be striving to normalize the fact that success doesn't happen at once. It really does happen one small dose at a time. And no matter what those small doses are, you just need to know that you are building and you are working towards something big. And it's all it takes to keep you going and keep you engaged and keep you paying attention to the small whispers, because it doesn't need to happen all at once. And we need to stop that pressure. Finally, on the show, I'm going to focus on the storytelling, about the stories that the stories that need to be told and the stories we need to hear. And those are stories about overcoming, they're stories of resilience, they're stories about really, really, really pragmatic strategies that work to help get all of us to the next phase, that help get all of us to our next destination in our journey for success. And I'll never forget this. One of the things that I have loved that served me really, really well is seeing other people accomplish things demystifies it for me. So, story real quick. I met a lady, her name is Lori Hartwell. She's the creator of an organization called the Renal Support Network. And she was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease when she was a child. And I heard her talk about her journey. And now, as a well-adjusted adult, she has a fulfilling life. She has a life that she loves and is proud of. Hearing stories or hearing Lori tell her story was one of the most profound things that happened to me because it allowed me to believe that I can also have all of those things and even more if I wanted to, right? That's what storytelling can do for all of us. It isn't, representation. It isn't just like we need to put people in places, but what representation does is it demystifies accomplishments for the people watching it and hearing about it. And I want to bring people like that on this platform and on the podcast because hearing somebody else tell their stories and their journey of how they got to anywhere doesn't matter where it is, becoming successful entrepreneurs, creating a non-traditional form of success for themselves, it will embolden you and embolden all of us to make sure that when we are goal setting, that we are not setting small goals, we are setting big goals. One of the last things that I want this platform to do is creating community, right? There is a subscription list. There is a place where I want all of you, and that will be linked in the episode description, to join a community where we can have conversations and talk about all of the things that we are experiencing, where we can share our wins, where we can talk about our challenges. I hope to build community with all of you that listen because what community does is it gives us permission and a safe space and place for all of us to express ourselves without feeling that we will be judged. It gives us permission for all of us to express how scared and fearful we are without feeling like there will be any blowback around that. More importantly, I hope that by you following, subscribing, leaving comments, that you can give me feedback about the topics you care about, the topics you feel like we can engage in and have thought-provoking conversations about. Community in this sense is going to be paramount to the success of this podcast. And I'm going to be required to ask all of you to help me build this community so that the story you have to tell and the journey that you are on could be a blessing to somebody else who is unsure and going through and navigating all of the uncertainties around their definition of what success means to them. And so I am so happy. I am so elated. I am so scared to be embarking on this journey with you here listening today. It lets me know that I'm not alone, but also that you agree and have committed to participating on this journey and building this community with me and building this podcast with me and letting me know right in the comments below what you think and what you hope I deliver through this podcast. Thank you so much for listening because this was the first episode of what I hope will be one of many more to come together. And that is all for today's episode, Success in Doses. I am your host, Saley, reminding you that every step forward, no matter how small, is progress worth celebrating. If you have questions or suggestions for future topics, connect with me on social media at Success in Doses Pod or visit our website at successindoses.com. Remember, the journey to success isn't about giant leaps. It's about consistency, resilience, and giving yourself the right doses of opportunity, rest, and perseverance along the way. Until next time, keep taking those small doses, intentional steps. They add up to something beautiful. This is Saleh, and you've been listening to Success in Doses. If you found value in today's conversation and today's episode, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a rating or share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps the community grow one dose at a time.